Good morning and welcome to StudyIQ, my dear friends. I am Prashant Mavani. I hope you all are doing good. Today is 29th April 2020. Day is Wednesday. I'd like to start today's discussion with this quote, very important quote. Believe you can and you are halfway there. First of all, you have to convince yourself. You have to have that confidence in yourself that you can do it. And once you have that thing, take your time. But once you have that thing, once you believe that you can, you are 50% there. Then the rest 50% is about implementation. So this is how it works. I want you guys to think about it. With this, dear friends, I would like to introduce all of you to our smart courses. StudyIQ has launched a smart course particularly for Civil Services Examination. This covers both your pre and mains examination. EMI, that is installment option, is available as well. This smart course is designed by the best faculties of our country that you can see on your screen. And to find out more about it, all you have to do is download our mobile application on your phone and go through our smart course. With this, dear friends, to download the PDF of today's lecture, check out my Telegram channel. Please make sure that you share this lecture with other students. Hit the like button if you have learned something from today's discussion. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Today, I would like to start our discussion. I have one special article for you. This one is from Indian Express, from yesterday's Indian Express. Basically, last night I was going through some extra articles from various different newspapers. And I came across this interesting article written by Shashi Tharoor, and he is talking about oil. So the name of this article is Let's Fill Up the Tank. And this one is about global decline in oil prices. As we all know, because of this lockdown, means at present more than 188 countries or regions are affected by this coronavirus. So there is a sort of global lockdown around the world. So naturally the price of oil has dropped because the demand of oil has dropped. Now, as far as supply is concerned, I would like to introduce you to some basic concepts of commerce, how it works. I'm going to be very brief here and very to the point. If you have any further doubts, then you can ask me, but I think it's going to be enough. Now, I believe you're aware about these two things, like there are variable expenses and there are fixed expenses. Paying rent for your house or your shop is a fixed expense. You pay a fixed amount of money every month. But electricity bill is a variable expense. It can go up and down, right? So there are so many, means if you see any business, generally speaking, you will find fixed as well as variable expenses, like your petrol expenses or your food expenses at your business or some other expenses. They can go up and down, but salaries, rents, some things are fixed, or many things are fixed and many things are variables. This is how it works in every business. So this thing applies to this oil business as well. Like you have some variable expenses that you do every month or every day, and then you have your fixed expenses like paying salary and for your machinery, your maintenance, and there are so many other things as well. Now, oil business is a bit tricky, complex business, right? Extracting oil is not like extracting water from your ground. It's a bit more complex. Of course, I'm not an expert in this field when it comes to oil extraction, but I have basic knowledge about how it works. Let me tell you one thing, that this cost is not, means taking out oil is just one part of the business. But before finding oil source at a particular place, you have done your exploration, you have done your research, you spend huge amount of money for exploration, and then luckily you find oil somewhere, and then you start extracting it, then you start selling it, then you make profit out of it, and out of that profit you pay your past expenses, you recover those expenses, then you reach a profit point. So just like any other business, your investment here, your investment starts quite early. You have spent huge amount of money or energy in finding or in this exploration. So it's not that easy to switch off and switch on things. You cannot just decide that if there is the demand is dropping, so you can reduce your production, but there is a limit to your reduction. Means let's imagine that you can reduce 10 liter per day, but even if you reduce 10 liter, automatically it will produce, let's say, 5 liter. Now the minimum that you can take it will be 5 liter, and you cannot stop it. This is a bit complex thing that it will keep on generating, means your whole machinery will extract a fixed amount of, minimum amount of oil will be extracted every day. So what you will do is you will store this oil, but there will come a time, if market is not requiring that oil, then you will fill up your tanks. But a day will come when your tanks are nearly full or up to the brim. So then comes this situation. Then you will be in this situation where we find this West Texas Intermediate, WTI oil, that the storage tanks are full. Now they don't have any capacity to store any oil. So what they are doing is they cannot just throw oil everywhere. They cannot just leave it there, right? They cannot just channel it to your oceans or your other places, because there are environmental laws, and then you have penalties and other things as well, isn't it? So the best they can do is they can offer you oil for free. In fact, not free, they will give you money if you can take away this oil, right? It is much better as well as easier if you pay money, and these companies will come and take away this oil, not for free, but they will get money. So this is the main reason when we say that this WTI is in minus 37.63. So this is how it works. I hope this whole concept is clear to you. Now I think we can move on. So this negative price has never been registered before, and this is a golden opportunity for countries like India. Like when it comes to India's oil basket or energy basket, WTI is not a big feature, but we are heavily dependent. Most of our sources are from this Gulf nations. We call it Brent crude oil. It is trading somewhere around $25 a barrel, which is 18 years lowest price. So this is a right time for India to get as much as oil as possible, and this is a big bonanza for us. So what we can do is we can fill up our tanks with this dirt money. When I say dirt money, I mean the dirt price, not dirt money, but dirt price of this oil is there, means very cheaply available oil. We can buy as much as we can, and we can we can fill up our storage tanks up to the brim if possible, and then we can later on use it, because at present our country is also in lockdown, so we don't need that much. As far as demand is concerned, the demand is nearly nil. So the best is to store this oil. Simple as that. Now this article is talking about strategic petroleum reserve. At present we have this capacity of storing oil worth, or you can say we can have 87 days of reserve, right? We can have this much of, this is our capacity, 87 days of reserves. What we need to do now is we need to expand it, right? As far as this 87 days are concerned, 65 days of oil remains with refineries. Most of our refineries are run by, or they are government owned refineries. We have some other refinery, like private players, like for example Reliance refineries in Jamnagar is one of the biggest. That one is a private company, isn't it? So but then as well, things are not that bad. 65 days with refineries is not that bad, right? It's good. And then we have this 10 days and 12 days, total 87 days. The existing and planned capacity for underground reserves is 10 days and 12 days of import cover for crude oil respectively. So total is 87 days. Now, dear friends, there are two issues that are highlighted by Shashi Tharoor here. He says that first one is that capacity does not directly translate into utilization, which is partly because oil is an expensive commodity most days of the year. On an average, right, in 2019, in 2018, we find few days where oil prices is down, but average price is not that cheap for a country like India, because we import 80% of our oil from global market. So the more cheap oil we can get now, right, this is once a generation opportunity. So let's say if we have 100 liter capacity, and if out of this 100 liter, if 90 liter is purchased at a very low price, then average price is going to be down, isn't it? Even if the rest 10% is bit higher, the average is going to be very reasonable or very cheap for our country. Second is in India, SPR, that is strategic Petroleum reserve agreement between the oil refineries and union or state government is not specified well, though most of the refineries that hold stock are publicly or government owned companies. But still, we need to work on it. There should be transparency and accountability. And just like foreign exchange that comes under this parliamentary scrutiny, petroleum products or this SPR is not under any sort of parliamentary scrutiny. So things are a bit more opaque here. We need more transparency and accountability here. And we can make the most out of the spaces that we have. Even if we have to rent a space abroad, then we should do it. Like there are a few places in Sri Lanka where you can store up our oil. Then you have places in Oman as well. We can utilize those spaces if it is possible. And as far as our spaces are concerned, right, we need to, at present it is not possible. In few days you cannot create this big storage facility, but you can, what you can do is keeping the future in mind, we can create more storage capacity, and this should be diversified. At present we have big central places. We have few areas where we store huge amount of oil. So we need to diversify it in various different parts of our country. So transportation cost will go down as well, and we will, if there is any sort of emergency, then oil will not be that far. It will be, you can say, equidistance from most of the places, So we need to think and plan like that, and we need to have more transparency and accountability. These are the things that are suggested in this article. So I think this was a very interesting discussion as well as interesting article, right, about energy. And this is, as I told you, right time that we can stockpile our SPR, as well as we can get a big chunk of oil at a reasonable price, which is good for our country, because as you know that 85%, 80% plus 85% of our oil requirement, energy requirement, comes from abroad. So we give our hard-earned dollars for in payment. So that's one thing. Second thing is if oil prices are down, then it impacts our inflation, right? If oil prices are down, then things will go cheaper in our country, which is very important, because after this lockdown, we know that we have created huge amount of losses because of this lockdown. So if every penny that we can save, if we can make some profits, if we can have some things that work in our favor, then all those drops, right, that will help. All those tiny efforts will help in speedy recovery, as well as speedy recovery of not just our economy, but it will spur demand as well. If oil prices are down, prices of products will go down as well. So these are the things, right? I hope this is more than enough. Now I have one question for you. What is the capital of Libya? And name the countries sharing land boundaries with Libya. With this, dear friends, let me give you a brief of what we have on our table very quickly. A task for South Asia. This article is written by a Pakistani person as well as one Indian person, and they are talking about this coronavirus and whole South Asia, how we can fight it together, why it is important, and things like that. I have one question as well for you guys about South Asia. Then later on, we will talk about the outline of another pandemic combat strategy. This one is interesting. We have opinions from two doctors. They are talking about herd immunity and other things. So then we will talk about it. Then we will talk about signaling support. This one is about Reserve Bank of India's support for mutual funds. And the last one is going to be no end in sight. This one is about coronavirus, and there are a few figures that we are going to discuss here. Then you have other three articles. This one about migrant workers. We have talked about migrant workers, vulnerable section many a times now. So I'll leave it on you guys. If you have extra time, you can go through it. Or as regular students, we have covered this issue many times, so no need to repeat the same things again and again. Again, this topic here, privacy concerns. We have talked about Aadhaar. We have talked about this Arogya Setu app. We were talking about a few days ago. We were, discussing this thing that China has deployed one application, and with the help of this application, it is keeping an eye on people who is affected with coronavirus, who is not, what is your traveling history, what is your traveling pattern. Based on that, you will get green signal to go out or not. So India is doing the same thing, and as far as this normal times, these things are not acceptable. But I think we are in a very dangerous, we are in a very dangerous zone at present. So there are few things that we have to let go. I'm not saying that fundamental rights are not important. Let me tell you very clearly, they are very important. They are most important. But at present, if let's say if we go ahead with partial lockdown, then it is very important, if you have to go out, then if in your office, if you have someone who has traveled in various different parts of your city, or he has traveled to various different districts as well for whatever reason, then if you can know that this person is a risky person, then that will save so many lives as well as so many energy, isn't it? So means I'm looking at it from this point of view. I want you guys to think about it as well. Privacy and other things are important, very important. But at the same time, safety is important as well. And this one is about unlocking justice in lockdown. Again, we were talking about this thing, digital judiciary and importance of judiciary, something that we all know very well, isn't it? So let's move on to this article, a task for South Asia. Now, I have one question for you. First of all, let me introduce you to South Asia. Most of the students, you are very well aware about this region, right? We have 8 countries here. They are part of the SAARC region. They are SAARC group. This is a group, South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation. So 8 countries, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and Maldives. These are the 8 countries here. I have one question for you. Question is that this region here represents what percent of out of total global population? What percent population lives here in this region, in South Asian region? Give me a figure in the comment section if you know the answer right now. If you don't know, then I want you guys to do a little bit of research and stick your answer in the comment section. Now, this region is one of the most populated region in the world. This region is one of the poorest region in the world. This region is not having that good, or I would say one of the worst health facility as well. You find in this region here. Densely populated cities like Karachi and Mumbai are also here. Death rate is fortunately not that high. If you compare it with USA, Europe and other places, then death rate as well as infection rate is not that high in this region. But it's not something that we should take lightly. Things are going like in Pakistan. This community spreading has already started. So the collective experience of dealing with COVID-19 may provide important lessons which transcend national boundaries. What this article is suggesting, that this region should act as one region, as one party, and they should learn from each other and help each other. That's what this article is all about. Now, South Asian countries have invested very little in health, as we know, right? And for a very long period of time, we have discussed this thing as well, that we know this thing for sure, that healthcare is, most of the healthcare, let's say in India, is private healthcare, isn't it? It's very expensive. There are a few benefits, like you find the latest technology and expertise. At the same time, private sector means it's all about profit, and out-of-pocket expense is quite high over here. Apart from this issue, we have hunger, malnutrition, poor sanitation, large-scale migration and other things. And this reminds me, when I was going through this article a few years ago, it's like 6-7 years ago, I was going through a video of one IPS officer from Tamil Nadu. His name is C. Sailendra Babu. You can go through his videos if you want, whenever you find time. So in one of his videos, I still remember, he shared this interesting historical fact. He said that when Europeans, early Europeans, when they arrived here in our country, in India, most of them were not able to go back because they died here in our country because of malaria and other diseases. And we know that for a very long period of time, India in this region is having one of the biggest chunk of TB, HIV, malaria, right? And then we have some emerging diseases like dengue, chikungunya and other things. So we have already big problems from other diseases, and now we have this coronavirus, and then we have this problem of constant internal as well as external conflicts in South Asia. And we spend huge amount of money after defense, and because of this thing we are not able to spend that much after social sector. These are some common features of this region. Then most of the people living in this region, they are very religious, and this is a big problem for Pakistan, that there are so many people over there. I'm not saying each and every person in Pakistan, but there are big groups in Pakistan. They have refused to obey the orders of the government, and because of this thing, at present Pakistan is going through this community spread of coronavirus. We had this case in our country as well, this Tablighi Jamaat incident, and I'm not saying that Muslims are the only people who are the main reason behind it, right? We cannot blame any particular community for it, right? The most visible thing is your religious attire. That's the problem, right? But if you go through some facts, then you will find this is something that was going on in US as well during this Easter time, Good Friday and Easter time. I was going through this BBC Global News podcast, and it is already available. So if you want to do a little bit more research about this thing that I am sharing with you, then it is available there. You have to find it yourself, of course, but you will find it. I can assure you, you will definitely find it. So if you go through this international report during this Easter time, the main problem in USA was also that people from people attending few churches, they were saying that, they were claiming that nothing will happen to them, God will protect. Of course, believing in God and things is not bad. I'm not saying that you should not, and these people are wrong. But the thing is, there are few things, like if God is there, then God has given us a brain as well, a logical brain that we can think. Using that brain, right, we can apply our logic, our rationality. That virus is a thing that if you are affected by a virus, then you have to take medicine. There are few diseases, I think they happen, if you change your belief system, then you will get rid of that diseases. But there are few diseases, for that you have to take medicines. For that you have to be careful, like viruses and bacteria, right? Your belief will not protect you from that. Your science will protect you. And God has given you this brain, so why don't you use that brain? Why don't you use your logic and protect yourself? So this is the thing, right, that we need to be careful. So anyway, we have discussed this thing early on as well, that there are a few pockets where you have to use your priests, your mullahs, your pandits to convince people, to create this awareness. I don't know why we are not using it, but I think this is the best, one of the best strategy. Like in few areas, if you know that people are going to follow only religious orders, then utilize your religious gurus. Let them create awareness. But first of all, they need to have that logic as well. If they will not believe, then nothing will happen. Healthcare professionals and bodies must seize this opportunity to push our respective governments to address it seriously, and not just as pre-election strategy. What we need now is more health expenditure, more health investment. Once we are out of this coronavirus epidemic, this whole situation, I think people will demand more from government. When I say more, I'm talking about education, I'm talking about skills, I'm talking about this health facilities, things that will help us survive rather than luxurious things. So I think people will demand more of this healthcare facilities. And this article is also saying that we need to go ahead with a regional strategy rather than isolated national level efforts. If we unite together, we can easily fight this coronavirus. But then we have this, it looks good on theory, but practicality, India and Pakistan issues not allow this thing to work. But yes, India can work with other countries, definitely. The outline of another pandemic combat strategy. This article is talking about some few basic things that we have already discussed, like this lockdown gives us time to think, time to take action, isn't it? Now we have two doctors here, Dr. Giridhar R. Babu, and then you have Dr. Jaiprakash Mulial. These doctors are saying that there will be an increase in the number of cases once the lockdown is lifted, and this is from, if you see other countries as well where they have lifted lockdown, we have seen a sort of rise in numbers. And we know our country, we have this dense population. We are densely populated nation, so it becomes a bit more challenging for a country like India. Dr. Babu is estimating that his estimates are indicating that in India we have some 250,000 cases at present. He's not talking about after lockdown, means post lockdown. He's saying that at present we have some 250,000 cases. Professor Mulil, he is saying that for every recorded cases, there are 60 people who have not been counted. So what they are suggesting is that we need to get rid of non-essential activities and do as much as you can from home. If you can work from home, right, then do that thing. And don't allow elderly people to step out. Allow only the young ones. If you have to, then only young ones. Healthy people should be allowed, and they should also follow this universal mask wearing thing. They have to keep physical distance, observe hand hygiene, and these things are very essential. They're also talking about herd immunity. Herd immunity was applied by Boris Johnson in UK, but I think the biggest mistake they did in UK was means elderly people were allowed to step out in UK, and that was the biggest mistake. What we can do is we can allow only young people to step out. Now, herd immunity is something that we naturally, like, herd immunity arises when a sizable population gets naturally infected over a period of time, so that the virus does not easily find a susceptible host to infect, thus bringing the epidemic to a halt. This is what Dr. Mulial and virologist Dr. T. Jacob John advocate. That's what they are saying. This herd immunity is naturally something that our body will develop. There are a few doctors who are saying that first we need to find a vaccination and then we can go ahead with this herd immunity. Before that, it will be very dangerous. And if we go back in 2009 with H1N1 cases, in 1918 Spanish flu cases, 1957 Asian flu, 1968 Hong Kong influenza, we find that herd immunity played a very important role. But this is very tricky as well as risky as well. There are a few doctors who are saying that mortality rate or this fatality rate of coronavirus, this novel coronavirus, is quite low compared to SARS and MERS and other diseases. So herd immunity, if we implement on youngsters, then it's not going to be that bad. But still, risks are there. And there is one more risk that WHO is saying, that we don't have any sort of evidence that once you recover from this coronavirus, then you will not, a second time it will not hit you. There are cases, like 222 cases in South Korea, where we saw the second time. The person who has recovered, there are 222 who recovered from coronavirus, but again they were tested positive after few days. So still we are learning many things about coronavirus. Now this is about mutual funds. Daily financial news analysis series, we have talked about it 3-4 times. So regular students who are following that thing, they know it very well, this topic. This one is about mutual funds. A few days ago, Franklin Templeton Investment Company, it closed its 6 high-risk mutual fund schemes. And because of this thing, like, there are some 26,000 crore rupees invested in this 6 schemes. So this company said that we will recover as much as we can and we will distribute as much as we can. So this created a sort of panic in mutual fund business. So to support this mutual fund industry, RBI came out with this decision that RBI will inject 50,000 crore rupees liquidity in this business. So RBI will give this money to banks, and banks can lend this to their clients. So this will provide a sort of support, as well as it will send a signal that if there is a requirement, then RBI is there to support any sector. Association of Mutual Funds in India has said that total investment in mutual funds is somewhere around 15 lakh crore rupees, which is of course a big amount. And here we are talking about 26,000 crore. So overall, the biggest chunk is invested in superior credit quality securities. So majority of mutual funds are safe, right, at present. They are not in high risk. In this 6 schemes, they were particularly high risk investment. So high risk, you get high return, but then you have this sort of risks as well. Now the biggest question is this. Of course, RBI's help is going to be very helpful for these mutual funds as well as this whole sector, and it is going to create a positive wave. Means they will feel that RBI is there if there is any need. But the question is how willing banks would be to use their facility to lend to debt mutual funds is something that we have to wait and watch, because banks are already going through so many other things. No end in sight. This one is about figures of coronavirus, which are very common. It took 94 days to reach 1 million, and then it took just 12 more days from 2 million to hit 3 million. And cases are going up gradually. 188 countries or regions are affected by coronavirus at present. The true number of infections will be several fold, because not that many tests are conducted by various different countries. Cases are dropping in Europe, cases are rising in Africa and South America. India has also reported somewhere around 30,300 cases. 973 have passed away in our country. And this editorial is basically talking about one thing, that what we need to do is we need to learn from successes and failures of other countries. Only after that we should think about removing lockdown, whether it is partial or a full. Of course, it's not going to be full. That's something that I know for sure. But this partial lockdown as well, we need to learn from successes and failures of other countries, and then only we should prepare our plan, customized plan, and then we need to implement it properly. This is the infographic that you find on the first page of the Hindu newspaper. Ministry does U-turn on plasma therapy. That plasma therapy is not, it's not 100% proved thing, or it cannot protect you from this coronavirus. That has been said by ICMR. 1.5 billion ADB loan, Asian Development Bank loan to fund COVID response, is another news item that I want you guys to go through. It explain MHA order has been said by Supreme Court. This order that employers should pay full wages to their workers. So a petition is filed saying that this is violation of Article 14. Niti Aayog has slammed this organization from Australia that has ranked India at number 7 in worst affected country by terrorism. Niti Aayog has said that what's your methodology, and from where do you get funding? This is a question that was not answered by this Australia-based institution. UPSC IRF has said that it has downgraded India's status in its 2020 list. It has kept India with these countries: China, North Korea, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan. And India is planning a big, massive evacuation from Gulf region. China has said that it is unfair to call test kits faulty. Deccan farmers may see dry spell. And S. Jaishankar has said that BRICS should help entrepreneurs. And that's everything in today's discussion. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Jai Hind.